for the warm-up, you will be filling out this table that represents the relationship between base length and area of some parallelograms. All the parallelograms have the same height. You need to complete the table. So find the pattern, think back to that lesson we did a while back, find those patterns in the table and continue the pattern. And then decide whether each equation could represent the relationship between B and A, and be prepared to explain your reasoning. So you have an option to this or that, and then fill out the table based on the patterns that over it in maybe 3 minutes. So make sure you're ready. Figure it out. All right, table 3. What needs to go in that first blank on the table? All right, we'll see if these are right in a second. Table 4, what needs to go here where my mouse is? All right, table 6, what needs to go here where my mouse is? Okay, and table 1, what needs to go here where my mouse is? Okay, we're gonna see if these are right. And what you needed to do is figure out the pattern in order, and then continue the pattern forward and backwards. So class, what is the pattern in the table? So don't tell me equation, or it doesn't matter. Like, what did you notice was going on that I can complete? Okay, someone else. I feel like we're overcomplicating it. Tell me what's the pattern, how did you know the polarities missing part? Like, how did you guys know to get 12.5 and 15.5? What was the pattern? Okay, so we're multiplying the B column by 3, right? Is 1 times 3, 3? Is 2 times 3, 6? Is 3 times 3, 9? And you are kind of seeing a pattern here and here a little bit, like these are going up by 1s, but then here they're not. Then it's going up by 1.5, and that's whatever this is. So while you might have seen a pattern here where they're going up by 3 each time, that kind of goes away when you see that this part is going up by not the same amount as this. I mean, you could have thought, okay, well, if it was just 4, it would have been 12, and it's 4.5, so like you could have figured it out that way. But it probably would have been better to try and see if there's pattern going from the rows rather than the columns. So we're gonna see if, I mean, it worked for the first 3. We're gonna see if multiplying those 2 other numbers that were given by 3 gives us what you guys said. So we have 4.5 times 3. That is 13.5. And then the 11 halves, I know that's a harder number to try and do the math, but I've shown you before how you can just put fractions in the calculator. We don't really revisit fraction rules at this level, but I do teach you how to put it in your calculator so that you don't really have to worry about them. whenever you are putting fractions in the calculator, in order to make sure it reads it right, you need to put that fraction in parentheses like that. And then we're multiplying it by 3, which gives us 16.5. All right, so we have to adjust those, but I mean, you guys are in the ballpark. Hello.
Hello, we didn't know you had this period, so we're a little late with my pieces. Do you mind if we present?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Versailles co-cotains, which basically supports your community, and
So we adjusted these answers, make sure you adjusted them too, as we copied them from earlier. So finding the pattern in the rows was the most valuable pattern. I mean, continue it this way wouldn't necessarily get you the right answers. But then we're having to work it backwards. So if we know the pattern is that we're multiplying by 3 to get this column, how would we do it in reverse? Yeah, that would be like the opposite of multiplying by 3. That undoes that. And when you kind of check the ones that were given to you, is 3 divided by 3 1? Is 6 divided by 3 2? Yeah. Is 9 divided by 3 3? And then you can try those other ones, which you just filled in, but I mean, now we multiplied it by 3, so dividing it by 3 would get us the original. So let's see if these others are right. 36 divided by 3 is 12, so good, that's right. And 46.5 divided by 3 is 15.5. So that is filling out the table following the patterns. Any questions on that part? Now, usually in this curriculum, anytime we are doing a table of values or doing a series of calculations, we are going to be making an equation by paying attention to everything, like all the math that we did. So the math that we did going from left to right was what? 5. And we were multiplying this column, which is labeled B, to get A, or it gives us A. And then when we were working backwards, what math were we doing? 5. And that time we were dividing this column, which is the A column, to get the B column. So anytime we do a table of values, a series of a bunch of like calculations, usually it's to help you make an equation by paying attention to what's staying the same each time. So we were doing something with 3 each time. The A's and B's kept changing depending on what the other was. All right. So that should have helped with, like, I mean, not that I told you to do this necessarily, but when picking what equation represents it, well, in this first set, the one that matches something we wrote is this one. Right? Not 3 times A, because 3 times 3 is not 1, right? So that is not giving us the input output table, but this is, and it is something we came up with just now. And then in the next set, this one matches what we wrote, albeit on like opposite sides, like mirrors, but the other one doesn't work with what we did. Like we didn't do 1 divided by 3 to get 3. We did times 3 to get 3. So there's that. That's how you can make the equations from a series of calculations. Pay attention to what's same constant, that will be numbers. Things that vary will be variables. Okay. So we're doing the lessons a little bit out of order because today and tomorrow's lessons, I think, require a lot of me guiding you. Friday's lesson, I think, will be easier to do on your own. You will have to do it on your own. It'll be fair, but I'm just going to remind you of the sub expectations. I do leave the seating charts, I do leave your pictures, and I did update it with pictures of you so that there's no shenanigans at all. And you guys, no matter what the random situation is, sometimes I come back and I hear like some weird story about why you didn't get your work done. It's posted easy now. Like there's no excuse for why you don't need it worse than. If you don't do it, it's a zero, like, I don't know if you know, you might not care about that zero. Oh, well, like, I don't care either. If that's what you earn, that's what you earn. Now, whether the sub reads you the instructions, whether the sub gives you the paper, like, it's there, you can read it yourself, you can do everything on your own paper, you never really read the paper that you're based on. You can always do things on your own paper. So Friday, you will be doing a lesson from the video, you can put your headphones that plug into your computer to do that, or to play it out loud. And there's, watch the video, take the notes, upload the notes, and do your practice online Friday. Now, for today, the goal is to rearrange equations to pin down a certain quantity. And in other words, solving an equation for one of the variables. We're doing a combo lesson today. Really, it's the same skill. We're the same skills. So we're going to write equations to describe situations that involve multiple quantities whose values are not known. How do we label unknowns in math? With a variable. So we're going to be making equations that have more than one variable, and then solving that equation for a particular variable. We've kind of been doing that already. I've been trying to incorporate it as much as I can, but we'll do a few examples and then we'll do a Kahoot to like further drive it home. Because this is kind of a hard skill for kids. It shouldn't be because it's the same steps as if there were numbers. But I know like once it's all variables and you kind of go blank, it shouldn't be a hard skill. So that's what we're going for. It shouldn't be so hard. So I'm re-recording the lesson right now. The one from last year is there in case you're ever working ahead. The practice is split, but they're both short. Like I try to never make your practices that long, but it should be a daily practice. In the past, we taught these on separate days, which is why they're separate, but really, I shorten them down to just what you need, which makes it easier for them. All right, so do them, your own independent practice. Your next assessment isn't until Monday, so make sure by Monday you're ready with all of those lessons, with your notes and your practice done already. Any questions? Yes. I don't know what you mean by remediation. I don't assign remediation. You can correct your quiz from home. Yeah, you don't need to come to tutoring at all. You can go to other teachers' tutorings and ask them questions and things. You can come to my tutoring and ask me questions and stuff, but like for quizzes, you can correct those at home. I'm not super stressed about a 10-point assessment. I know if you cheat on your corrections, well, one, there's only half credit back. So it's not that much. But I know if you cheat on your corrections, like it's not going to make or break you. But I'm not encouraging you to cheat on your corrections. You just need to look at how you did. It's viewable now. Like go look at the ones you got wrong so that you don't get them wrong on the unit test is what I really care about. So you can do them at home and tutoring, it doesn't matter. Questions on that? Okay. So moving on to this activity. So this first part is us problem solving. The meat and bones of this lesson, like how we're actually meeting our learning target, is in the part of writing the equations. Okay, so don't get tripped up on this part. We're going to help you set it up right now. This is like real world problem skills. So after a parade, a group of volunteers is helping to pick up the trash along a 2-mile stretch of road. The group decides to divide the length of the road so that each volunteer is responsible for cleaning up equal length sections. Find the length of a road section for each volunteer if there are the following numbers of volunteers. So guys, it uses the word divide. What operation does divide tell you to do? Divide. So you need to figure out what two numbers, there's not that many numbers in this. You need to figure out what two numbers you need to divide to give me the length they need to clean up if there's 8 volunteers, 10 volunteers, 25 volunteers, 36 volunteers. After that, you need to pay attention to the math that you did so that you can make the equation. That would include an L for length and an N for volunteer. That's your additional thing. I'll give you 4 minutes to try both parts. After you do this part, you're doing the part that says find the number of volunteers and making you the length. If there's a 2-mile stretch of road and they want to divide it evenly and there's 8 volunteers, how much is each person cleaning? We'll get to it. Come on, guys. Like real world situation. Take out the fact that it's printed on the paper and that, it's a question you have to solve in math. If you were splitting up like pizza and there's 2 pieces between 8 people, 1/4 is what each person would get, right? In this case, it's miles of road that they're cleaning. So 1/4 is a fraction, or you can use the decimal so long as it's a decimal that ends versus like going on forever. That is how much each would clean. And what you should have typed in your calculator is what? For the first one, what should you have typed in your calculator? 2 divided by 8. I even gave you guys the hint of it says divide in like operation. 2 inches. Divide. Which is 1/4.
And then
You don't have to convert it to a fraction. Are you guys listening? You don't have to convert it into a fraction if it's a decimal that ends. Like 0.25 does not go on forever. But if it was like a decimal that goes on forever, then I would prefer the fraction answer, which is more exact. And you can press this button here on Desmos, and it'll give you the simplified fraction. Most handheld calculators have that button too. So just Google your calculator, what button you need to press to make it go from a decimal to a fraction. Questions on that? This button right here. All right. So that's what you do for the first one. Table 4, what about if there's 10 volunteers? How much do they each have to clean? Good, 0.2 of a mile. Table 6, what about if there's 25 volunteers? Table 6 will come back to you. Table 1, if there's 36 volunteers, how much do they need to clean? Question? What's the figure? So table 1 or 6, whenever you guys have an answer, let me know. Zero point three, you said? So that was then? Yeah. Okay, I'll see if it's right in the calculator. Table 6. Okay, we have a 2-mile stretch of road and 25 people that need to clean it. How to try and split it evenly? Guys, as soon as we get done with these examples that are on the screen, we get to play a Kahoot. But I don't know why this is taking so long. I really don't. It's a real world situation. There's 2 miles. We want them to each clean equal sections. There's 25 people. What math do I need to do to figure it out? I use it for the 36 volunteers. Yeah, what is it? 1/20, you said? How about I make it work? I don't know when they would- yeah. Okay. Table 6, I want you to reread this. I've already read it a time. And pointed out very important parts in it. That would tell you what you need to do. Reread it. What operations do I need to do? Yep, it says I need to divide the length, right? So what am I dividing? There's not that many numbers in the problem, so there's only 2 out of them. You want me to do 25 divided by 2? That's 12.5. Now, does that make sense that they would each clean 12.5 miles? So what should you actually divide? Not 25 divided by 2, what's the only other option? 2 divided by 25, which is what? What does it say? 0.08. Okay, so let's confirm if B, C, and D are right. I even did the first one together, right? Well, I asked people to read for it, and then we confirmed it together. So we really just gotta pay attention. 2 divided by 10, 2 mile stretch of road divided by the 10 volunteers is 0.2, that is correct. 2 divided by 25 is 0.08. 2 divided by 36 is 0.05, or really rounded is 0.06. This one is a decimal that goes on forever. So in this case, the rest of them end. In this case, I probably prefer the fraction, which is 1/8. So instead of rounding the decimal, think of the fraction, which is more exact. But if you're rounding the decimal, rounded would be approximately 0.06. Questions on that process? Okay. And again, a good thing to point out was that, like, if you divided wrong, like if you did the bigger number divided by the smaller number, that doesn't make sense in the situation. I only have 2 miles that needs to be cleaned. So whatever each person is cleaning should definitely be less than 2 miles, right? So you always have to go back and check, like, does that make sense? All right, so that wasn't supposed to be the hard part. The hard part is supposed to be making the equation, which really isn't that hard. Whatever math you were doing to get this series of answers, you need to pay attention to what was staying the same each time, and here's all those calculations, and what was changing each time. So what's staying the same each time? That the 2 is being divided by something. That something is changing each time. What is that something representing? And do they have a certain variable for volunteers? They want us to use n for volunteers. So for our equation, 2 divided by n, the number of volunteers was varying each time, and equations have equal signs. This was giving us what in the situation? the length that they need to clean, and they want us to use this like fancy L. Cause L already looks like one, so make it look more like a L. And now it's an equation, now it has an equal sign. It has two variables, cause there was two things that was changing each time. The number of volunteers and the amount that they each have. Questions on that? Okay, so when you get to your practice later today. And it says something like, write an equation that would make it easy to find L. What they mean by that is they want the L to be alone on one side, because then it is pretty easy to find L. I just have to do 2 divided by however many volunteers in my calculator, and that's just like one step I need to do. Questions on that? Okay, so now we're gonna set up number 3, so everyone pay attention, so we can move on to the Kahoot later. We're going to now find the number of volunteers if we are each cleaning up this much. So we're given the length now, and we're being asked to find the number of volunteers. We already have an equation that we know represents the situation, so this is a length. It needs to be plugged in where in this equation? This length needs to be plugged in where in this equation? No. The L, because it's length, not volunteer, right? So, what I need to do, or what you could do, not necessarily saying this is the best strategy, but what you could do is plug in like that 0.4 and solve for n. But right now, when I try to isolate n, it's in the denominator. That's a little bit more challenging. I cannot just multiply each side by 2 to get rid of the 2 because that wouldn't cancel it out. It would make it 4 over n. That's not canceling out anything. So when what you're trying to isolate is in the denominator, first you need to break up the fraction by multiplying by the denominator. And I know that seems, sorry, I'm waiting for that. I know that seems counterintuitive because we're trying to isolate n, so why am I multiplying n on each side? Well, it's because it's stuck in a fraction, and that's the only way to break it apart. Is multiply by the denominator, whatever you do on one side, do to the other side. That gives me this, which is easier to isolate than it was before. What's opposite of multiplying by 0.4? Dividing whatever you do on one side to the other side. And then my number of volunteers for this situation, someone do 2 divided by 0.4 for me. 5 is 5. So like for this 0.4 of a miles, that means I must have 5 volunteers. Now you could do that each time, but I mean, that's what? 2 steps, and this first step is usually pretty confusing for you guys. What might be a better strategy, which is why we do this lesson, is to, from this stage, if I know I'm solving for the number of volunteers, at this stage, starting to rearrange it by multiplying each side by n. I get 2 equals L times n. We don't know what those values are yet. And then opposite of multiplying by L is, and we'll do that on each side, which gives us the equation we need already. And not only that, it makes it something that is just one thing I need to plug in the calculator. So now for all these different lengths, I just need to do 2 divided by the length, and it'll give me the number of volunteers instead of doing all this. Okay, that's a good question. Fraction rules are usually challenging for people, so that's why we don't really go over that again. I mean, we could, but like, there's still gonna be people that will not remember it and will get it wrong. So that's why we teach you just how to enter it. So 2 divided by the length. In this next one, my length is 2/7, fraction. Anytime you're putting fractions in your calculator, put it in parentheses so that it reads it right. 2 divided by 2/7 is 7. You guys do the same for the next 2 on your own. Take a moment. I'm going to pause you. We already did 2 examples. Go ahead with got it. All right, but rearranging the equation from the beginning might help you make it easier to solve it versus doing that whole mess we did. .125 of a mile. How many volunteers must there be? And table 3, when there's 6/45 of a mile, how many volunteers must there be? One more time. Okay, let's verify that. So having rearranged it from the beginning makes it just one thing I need to type in my calculator, one step I need to do, which is divide by the length, 0.125, and that is 16 for that one. And then for the 6/45, I need to put that fraction in parentheses so that it reads it right. 15 is the right answer. See what happens when I don't put the parentheses. Hold on. Like it starts getting weird. So that's why you need to put the parentheses in versus just pressing the buttons so that it reads it right. It should be 15 when you do that. Questions? Okay. So that's how you make the equation. So when you do your practice later, pay attention to like the math that you're having to do to solve the real world situation. Make the equation and then you can rearrange it to make it easier to solve for the other variable. Now the rearranging I know involves more practice. We're not going to do the examples on the back of your notes. We're just going to do the Kahoot. So if you want to use the back to do like some scratch work from the Kahoot, go ahead. But I figured that would be better so you see more examples of a skill that is usually pretty hard for people. So I'm going to put that up right now. This one, you're rearranging to solve for t. So you want to get the t alone on one side. Ignore this t. That t is nothing. But this, you're solving for t. Okay. So you have to look at everything that is going on because t ignores this t that's in parentheses. It's just telling you what we're trying to isolate. So when it says write an equation that would make it easy to solve for t, or if it just says solve for t, we want the t alone on one side. Right now it's solved for d. I want that. Look at everything that's happening to the t. What's happening to the t? Good, because when it's just smushed together, multiplication is implied. What's the opposite of multiplication?
Oh, dividing.
So that's why we're going to divide by r, just like you would if this was a number. Divide by it, whatever you do on one side. Do to the other. And then t is alone, because these are variables, like it's not a number like it normally is, you can't really do anything else. You can just rewrite it. So it shouldn't be that hard. Like it's the same steps as if they were numbers. Just you read it as that expression versus it becoming something else. All right. And order does matter in division. So I was dividing by r. R needs to be the denominator. There was no addition, so like you definitely shouldn't have done subtraction to cancel it out. Okay, here's the next one. I'm not waiting for your conversations to be over. So solve for s squared. I don't know why you can't hear it.
Oh, I didn't totally. Oh my God. That's the one that's me. Look at me. Oh my.
Okay, waiting for you to be quiet so I can explain. It says solve for s squared. So they want the s squared to be alone. I know it's weird that they'd want this s squared to be alone and not just the s, but whatever they say, they want s squared to be solved for, they want it alone. So look what's happening to the s squared, what's happening to the s squared. That's where you answer. What's happening to the s squared? It's being multiplied by 3. What's the opposite of multiplying by 3? Whatever you do on one side of the equal sign. So now look at the answers. 3v doesn't make sense. Multiplication does not cancel out multiplication. Maybe if you were multiplying by the reciprocal, but we weren't, so no. Then over here, subtraction does not cancel out multiplication. So these are definitely wrong. If you were confused, I would expect you to like be stuck between blue and green. But order matters in division. If we're dividing by 3, 3 should be the denominator. Questions on that? Okay. So then on to the next one. All right, you're solving for A in this one.
I could. There's like a lot of way.
Okay, what are we solving for? I said solve for A. So, I mean, it was right here. It wasn't covered the entire time. It goes away. Anyway, I also said out loud. So what are we trying to get alone on one side if we're solving for it? So look at everything that's being done to the A. What's being done to it? It's being added by B. How would I cancel out the B? Whatever you do on one side. Now, unlike when there's numbers, all I can do is rewrite this to be an expression because I don't know what the numbers are. There's more than one variable. All I can do is rearrange it and then just leave it in that order. Questions on that? Okay. So that is blue just on opposite sides. A is alone. It has to be P minus B. All right, depending on how fast you are, this may or may not be our last one.
Gonna blind guess it. What? Come on, come on. No, come on, look. Yes, it is. Blue. Yes, it is. I bet. Stay. Okay, zero. Okay, on feet. And clear seats. And that was oh, yeah.
Okay, so pay attention. You're not leaving till we fully go over it because this one is more important than the other ones. Are we listening? It doesn't sound like you're listening.
Yep.
So stop moving or you're not going to get out on time. I promise you that. Okay. So look at everything that's being done to the Z. There's multiple things going on. Just like you would if these other things were numbers, you always get rid of what is, finish the sentence. You always get rid of what is, will someone figure it out or we're not leaving? Just like if these were numbers. Can you guys finish the sentence I'm asking you for? You get rid of what is farthest. Thank you. What's farther, the D or the N? So that is why I subtract the D, not just because that's what you're supposed to do, because it's farther from what we're trying to isolate. So on the left side, so far it's A minus D. On the right, it's N times Z. What's opposite of multiplying by N? Now, the reason why it's yellow, I mean, when you type it in, it's just like one line that you get to work with. You have to put the numerator in parentheses or else it will divide first, and we don't want to divide first. We would normally have subtracted this first and then divided by whatever number it is, but these are all letters, so all you can do is write it as an expression. Any questions? Okay. If you're the top 3, then you can pick a prize from this bin over here.
Oh, 5, 3.